Ah, the Rhino tank. If I was making that sweet, sweet YouTube money, this is what I'd buy. And yes, I still remember the cheat code to get the tank in Grand Theft Auto. Circle, circle, L1, circle, 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 L1, L2, R1, triangle, circle, triangle. It's burnt into my brain the amount of times I've used it. But, of course, this is all part of a video game. It's good fun to get a tank and run amok around the city blowing stuff up. But it's a different story when this happens in real life. Hello! Welcome to Brain Spill, the laziest show on the internet. My name is Tank, and today we're starting with this. The M60 Patton tank. This was an American-made battle tank that had entered service within the US Army in huge numbers in the 1960s. There were over 15,000 of these built and had seen combat during its service. Being seen in the Persian Gulf War and the Cold War, the tank was soon replaced in the early 90s and was slowly but surely being phased out of service. So yeah, these tanks are pretty noteworthy, being in commission for a long time, and at the end, once they were phased out and retired, when you've got all these tanks, the ones that were left anyway, you've got to wonder what you do with them all. I mean, they've got to go somewhere, I guess. So, we have one of these M60 tanks being stored in a US military facility in San Diego. I just want you to remember that. It's a pretty important fact that this tank is in this place, so let's just put a pin in that for now and we'll come back to this later in the story. The main man of today's story is a guy called Shawn Nelson. He grew up in the Claremont neighborhood of San Diego, having enlisted in the United States Army and served 2 years predominantly as a tank driver until an honorable discharge in the year 1980, where he would soon return home and work as a plumber. Over the years back home, things would take a turn, and the brother of Shawn Nelson would later go on to comment on the fact that during this time, Shawn would go on to develop an addiction to methamphetamines, which, I mean, might have played a part in this whole saga, just a guess. Shawn's mother would pass away in the year 1988, which would see his behaviour start to shift during this time. 2 years later, his wife would file for divorce after 7 years of marriage. Shawn would then reportedly go on and start having some strange behaviours, such as the one time he decided to dig a massive hole in his back garden to try and find gold. I'm not gonna lie, I've also considered doing this, but the reality of finding gold in your own backyard is pretty slim. This hole was also pretty big, so I guess you've got to do something with your time. He would also have a motorcycle accident which resulted in neck and back problems going forward, which would have a heavy impact on his plumbing business. So heavy in fact that this effectively halted his work entirely. With no real source of income, he was unable to pay his bills and his house went into foreclosure. This all must have been pretty hard on the guy. According to San Diego police in one of their reports, they said that Shawn Nelson had told a friend of his that he was thinking of committing suicide, and the following weekend told a friend that Oklahoma was good stuff, referring to the fact that the Oklahoma City bombings had occurred a month prior. Although Shawn was not suspected of being part of any sort of terrorist group, it seems that this was a man on the edge, simply stepped over the threshold and did something beyond crazy. Of course, the build-up to this point, there has been a number of things that have happened in Shawn's life, which is truly terrible, and you know what, I do feel for the guy because he can't have been in a good position. And it shows because what I'm about to tell you next is absolutely insane. On the 17th of May 1995, it was a warm evening in San Diego. Shawn Nelson got into his van and drove to the nearby National Guard Armory. Psst, that's the armory I was telling you about earlier. You know, the one with the tank in it. Told you it'd all come full circle eventually. Now, for anyone that's played the game Grand Theft Auto before, you know for a fact that if you were to roll up to a military base and try and get in it, you would be immediately shot by about 20 guards who were all trying to stop you from getting inside. That is not what happened here. Shawn drove up to the facility, got out of his van, realised the gate was left open and there was no one there to stop him, so he just wandered in. This is crazy in itself that any civilian could just walk into a place like this, let alone climb into the tank and start it up, which is exactly what Shawn did. The scary thing about this is that the tank didn't even need like a key to turn it on. You literally hopped in, pressed a button, and it started. I mean, I know that he had experience driving tanks when he was in the military, but I think anybody could have figured that out. At this point, a guardsman did realise what was happening and did try and stop him, but a little bit too late. The guy is already in the tank, and it's not going to be easy to get him out of it. So Shawn went forward and drove out of the facility, having just acquired himself a tank. So what did they do? The guardsmen called the local police to come and assist them with stopping the tank. Yes, the army called the police. No one clearly knows what's going on here. How do you stop this guy? He's in a tank. Your guess is as good as mine. This was going to be a long evening. Even though in hindsight it seems ridiculous that this could even happen, the one smart decision they made was to keep the ammunition out of the tank when it was being stored in this facility. Meaning that although that a civilian had managed to steal it, the actual ammunition required to shoot the tank was not in the vehicle, meaning that thankfully he didn't have access to this. Although this was all well and good, the guy's still in a tank, and for anyone that knows how destructive a tank can be, well, he would go on a wild havoc ride to destroy as much as he could. It also doesn't help that this guy has operated tanks before, so he really knew what he was doing. The chase was on. San Diego Police, the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, the California Highway Patrol, and possibly some military personnel as well, were all involved in trying to stop this tank rampage. This was a 5-star wanted level if I'd ever seen it, and this quickly got onto the news where it was being broadcast live for people to see the scenes that were unfolding. This 57-ton tank went through road signs, traffic lights, utility poles, fire hydrants, and crushed approximately 40 parked vehicles. The damage was widespread and unrelenting, which also knocked out the power to about 5,000 local residents. I can just imagine being a passerby and seeing this unfolding and just thinking, no one's going to believe me if I tell them this is happening. I mean, it's not like now where anyone can whip out a smartphone and start recording this, so for people to see this happening, it must have been pretty unbelievable. Something like this would have been on the front page of Reddit before you knew it. This was news. Problem is, this is a tank we're dealing with. How do you stop a tank? I mean, the police probably really haven't had the training for this because they'd probably never expect something like this to ever happen to them, so they had to get pretty creative with how they were going to stop this guy. After going down some neighbourhood streets, destroying everything in his way, he would eventually make his way to the freeway, driving the tank down State Route 163 heading southbound. After previously ramming into a bridge support column, he would keep going down the freeway until Shawn attempted to drive the tank over a concrete barrier. This would be a fatal mistake, as the tank got stuck when a track came off the tank. After this, the tank was stuck, and this gave the officers the perfect opportunity to climb on board and try and get Shawn out of the vehicle. And to do this, they had to use bolt cutters to try and prise open the tank hatch, which had been sealed by Shawn inside. So they managed to get the hatch open, and then they demanded that Shawn surrender himself. Saying nothing, Shawn tried to rock the tank back and forth to maneuver it out of its stuck position so he could carry on his rampage. And unfortunately, this left the officers no choice. In order to bring this to an end, they had to shoot Shawn on the spot. The bullet went through Shawn's neck, to which Shawn would later die that evening in the Sharp Memorial Hospital, ending this 23-minute tank rampage. The decision on the shooting was questioned, but the actions were defended, saying that there would have been many more people at risk of death or injury, and any form of tear gas might have not been enough to stop Shawn if he did manage to free the tank from the barrier. Miraculously, nobody aside from Shawn was killed as a result of his actions. I mean, if you're in a tank and you really wanted to do that, then you could have probably done it quite easily. However, it seems that that might not have been his intention, and it was more focused on the destruction of public property than anything else. The police, generally being considered to have done the right thing in this situation, were praised. However, the local military were probably not going to get off that easily. I mean, yes, there was probably a few questions asked as to how the fuck this could have happened. I mean, a guy walked into your facility and stole a tank with little to no resistance. How on earth did I mean, where the hell were the risk assessments? How on earth could this have happened? Armoury officials said that only a few people were given the keys to the vehicles, that the vehicles were kept far away from fences to make them difficult to reach, that someone with only the proper knowledge could operate or even start a tank, and that there was just no way for them to foresee such an event like this taking place. As you might imagine, security was beefed up heavily after this incident. So, you might be wondering what led Shawn to do this. Again, it seems like a majority of factors. Certainly a lot had happened in his life which might have led him to some sort of mental breakdown, or might have been due to the fact that he was on methamphetamines at the time. I mean, I guess we'll never truly know, but it just seems like an accumulation of factors might have unfortunately led him to make such a decision like this. I guess we'll never know, but at the end of the day, I think there's a few lessons to take away from this, including the fact that you should probably not let your tank start by just simply hitting a button, especially when a member of the public is able to simply walk into your facility. Yeah, you might want to have a few more security measures in there in the future. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload my next video, be sure to hit the bell button. And if you've got any ideas for what topics you'd like me to discuss next, let me know down in the comments below. As always, sources used in the video will be in the description. You know what? As crazy as this all is, I think the next time I want to see a tank rampage like this, I'd rather just keep it inside the video game. I mean, it's a little bit more fun that way, and there's not millions and millions of dollars worth of property damage afterwards, so yeah, maybe just keep it separate. You know what I mean? I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.